All right, so I'm here with Vince Volpe, Associate Athletic Director of Arizona State. Vince, how are you?
Hey Ryan, good morning. Great to be with you.
Great to meet you as well. Great to see you. Yeah, so being one of the first ones on this podcast, kind of wanted to gain some knowledge from outside of the University of Kansas and hit up Vince and thought it was going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks Ryan. If I'm leading off here, the bar will be low, so looking forward to the conversation.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it, Vince. So, kind of getting into your background a little bit, let's just jump right into it. 23 years in collegiate experience. You've raised over $60 million in development and revenue at multiple different stops. If you kind of just want to go through your background and kind of get us point to point of how you got here and why you wanted to get into sports, and especially the collegiate side.
Yeah, sure, Ryan. I'll start kind of from the beginning. Originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I was recruited to play baseball at Indiana University. Played there and got both of my degrees in this industry. So, a bachelor's in sports management, a master's in athletics administration, and then had a really cool opportunity in between those degrees to intern for a former athletic director at IU. And I took a little bit of the bull by the horns. He was new, maybe 3 or 4 months on the job. I was staying in Bloomington in between my degrees, and I didn't have any practical internship experience. So I asked him, could I intern for free in your office 40, 50, 60 hours a week for free and really be that asset in athletics administration and build some practical resume experience? And he said, absolutely. Son, I like your initiative. Come back on Monday. I'll have a spot for you. And I came back that following Monday, and he had set up a folding table in his office with a legal pad and a phone. And so I started doing all types of odd jobs for the athletics administrative team at Indiana. And that was my first introduction to what I'll call the front office of college athletics. Being a former student athlete, of course, I knew our coaches, our academic advisors, our trainers, etc., but I did not know the athletic director. I did not know anybody in administration or marketing or development or compliance. So that really opened my eyes, that experience in between my degrees. And then, Ryan, I went on to get my master's degree and started in a postgraduate internship role for 9 or 10 months at the University of Kentucky. And then I started in athletics development at the University of Missouri. Spent 6 years there in progressive roles of experience. I met my wife there. She's a former student athlete as well. She was a gymnast at Missouri. And then I jumped into kind of the administrative ranks, if you will, overseeing all of external operations and being a sport administrator at Oral Roberts. Spent several years at the University of Connecticut. Spent 8 years in South Texas as the deputy athletic director, working on a very special and unique project, building Division I football from scratch, and then came here to Phoenix a little over 2 years ago and have been in an unbelievable ride. You talk about the CFP run that our football program had last year. Our men's and women's swimming and diving program about 15 months ago won the national championship. This was our first year in the Big 12. We won 4 Big 12 conference titles, was runner-up in 4 others. And just earlier this week, we were awarded the first ever Big 12 Commissioner's Cup that takes into account competitive success, academic achievement, and community service. So really, really proud of our first year in the Big 12. And gosh, Ryan, that's about summing up that 23 years in 4 minutes.
Yeah. No, I just at Arizona State, we as a KU grad, we didn't want to see you guys come in, and of course, year one, you just kind of dominated everything, and football, basketball was all right, but specifically football, you kind of just came in, and even your baseball, I think you guys set attendance records this year, and your swim and dive was just amazing. But kind of talk about that transition into the Big 12, and you kind of oversaw it a little bit, and just what was that process like, and how'd you kind of see it go down?
Yeah, that happened really quickly. If you go back 2 summers ago, the Pac-12, obviously, and this is all publicly reported, the Pac-12 was finalizing media rights with a streaming company, and certain schools weren't too keen to that concept. And we saw the Pac-12 landscape shifting around us, whether that was from Los Angeles to Seattle to Boulder, Colorado. And so, as there was a very dynamic 10 to 14 days, really, where us, Colorado, Arizona, and Utah made the pivot to the Big 12. And that all happened within my first 100 days. So it was really,
Thrown into
really
the fire,
fluid and
yeah.
dynamic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a crazy transition. I mean, being at KU, was just all of a sudden we're checking social media, and it's just like we got 2 coming. Oh, we got 4 coming, and yeah, like you said, Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona. Yeah, what a transition. And yeah, I've seen you kind of like on social media. Did you kind of just kind of bought all in, and especially on your Twitter, I feel like you have like definition of, and it's just like grit or something, or. But it's cool to see that you're kind of just bought all in, and I just kind of talk about the program right now and how's it going since that transition. You mentioned kind of the Commissioner's Cup and all the success you guys had.
Yeah, we really value broad-based success. I can talk all day about the success of our programs. Volleyball, new head coach heading into his 3rd year. Pac-12 Coach of the Year, our last year in the Pac-12. Big 12 Coach of the Year, our first year in the Big 12. Big 12 champs. Just a tremendous program in volleyball. You already mentioned baseball. One of the blue bloods in baseball and college baseball, 5 national championships. You've got legacy that goes back to Reggie Jackson, Barry Bonds, Dustin Pedroia, on and on and on. Softball program, multiple national championships. Our men's and women's golf programs, top 5 in the country on both sides of golf. I can go on and on. Wrestling program, top 15 in the country. I'm going to leave folks out, but
Yeah.
we have 26 sports. At one point, midway through the year, we had 14 of them ranked in the top 25. Half of those ranked in the top 10.
Yeah.
So we have a broad-based, successful department, 26 sports, more than 650 student athletes, elite level coaching, and doing it in one of the best markets in the country when you combine Phoenix with the possibilities from an NIL standpoint. We have a mantra that's really coined 2.5 years ago by our football coach, Coach Dillingham. We are activating the Valley in all ways and for all of our sports.
Obviously has had a big impact. What would you kind of going back to your career and coming up and being kind of like my age or a little bit older, but how'd you kind of take that first leap? You kind of mentioned that Indiana, you kind of asked to be an intern in a grad role, but and you said unpaid. I'll tell you, there's still unpaid internships. I just had one at KU, so those are still around. But kind of, how did you get yourself out there? How did you kind of get to each step? Starting out at Mizzou and then kind of going to Oral Roberts, but just kind of how did you get yourself out there and kind of get at each stop?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to be willing to ask for things that may be uncomfortable or most people won't ask for, right? If you look back at that Indiana internship, 3 or 4 months over the summer, I worked 40, 50 hours a week, no paycheck, willing to do stuff that most people weren't willing to do. So it starts there, right? You got to separate yourself somehow. The athletic director was new. I literally walked in his office and said, "Sir, you don't know me. I played baseball here. I just graduated my undergrad degree. I'm sticking around Bloomington and we'll be here for another 3 or 4 months." Most people aren't willing to walk into the new AD's office and put themselves out there like that.
Yeah.
So be willing to do that. Be willing to take coaching, especially early in your career. All of us have ideas and aspirations. We don't have wisdom or answers. So be coachable, be flexible, be adaptable. Make sure you're willing to fall in love with the work, right? The work and producing great work with great people will always open doors.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. My first day, or not first day, but first week, kind of being at KU, they said go network, go talk to everyone and go be with everyone. And so we did. We'd go around and give that little minute or two to every department, compliance, marketing, sales, but you kind of don't really follow up after that. And I feel like in my aspect, I did a good job of kind of following up. Our head associate AD, Colin Sexton, I reached out to him that week and was just kind of like, hey, I want to have like a 30-minute sit down with you whenever you're free. And as you probably know, KU's undergoing a lot of stuff right now with Allen Fieldhouse just got renovated, and our new football stadium is happening, and he was head of football ops, and he was courteous enough to kind of give me 30 minutes of a jam-packed spring that has just been pretty hectic, kind of getting this football stadium up and running. So I do kind of resonate with that, and am trying to be kind of better at doing stuff like that, like you mentioned. What would you say was kind of like the most pivotal moment of your career? Just kind of what was that most pivotal moment?
I think it's been I've been fortunate to be surrounded by some tremendous mentors. And I look back on my career, it started with folks at Missouri, right? When you talk about Mike Alden, Whit Babcock, Mario Mocha, Eric Morrison, Mark Ingram, and having kept those relationships through the years, and then moving on to tremendous mentors like Mike Carter, Ward Manuel, Chris King, Chase Conk. Our folks here at Arizona State are first class. And so it's surrounding yourself with great people, but also knowing the proper time to bet on yourself and take opportunities that others may not think are that rational, right? And I've always done that in my career. You mentioned my background. I've been at all levels of the Division One, literally. Division One, AAA, no football, FCS, FBS, Group of Five, Power Four, and so bet on yourself to take what those mentors have taught you and put it into applicable use.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think finding that mentor or mentors especially like you said at each stop is very key. Was there any like sit down conversations where you were just like, wow, that really hit me, or maybe like an instance where you were like, wow, that just really helped me?
Yeah, I may go back all the way to grad school, and we had a graduate school professor that took the notion of it's not what you know, it's who you know, to really the next level. And I've never forgotten it, right? Because it was such an impactful moment in grad school. And I'm going to date myself a little bit, but it was back in kind of towards the tail end of Michael Jordan's heyday.
Yeah.
And I'm in a class with maybe 30 or 40 other students. And to really bring home his point, he asked the class, raise your hand if you know who Michael Jordan is. And of course, everybody raised their hand. And his point was the old adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know is really BS. Because there was 50 people in that classroom who knew Michael Jordan. And now he said, keep your hand raised if Michael Jordan knows you. And so every hand went down. And so the reality is, it's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you.
Yeah.
And as you talk about the mentoring that you're doing or initiating this podcast to to be a helpful intercollegiate athletics enterprise and help other people's learn and grow. That's the mantra, right? How do you make yourself a known, a liked, and a trusted colleague, mentor, producer? And that's stuck with me over the last 25 years. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you, and do they like, trust, and respect you?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is great advice, and I appreciate that a lot. That was definitely impactful. So you kind of going into just your career, back to your career again, development. How'd you kind of get into that side? Obviously, you've continued to like it and have been super successful with raising over $60 million at different stops total along the way. But that's kind of up my alley too. It's kind of my background, and just kind of go into how you got into it and how do you be successful in development?
Yeah, this goes back to, again, my time in grad school. So I had that internship experience, that unpaid internship experience between my degrees. And while I was in grad school, I really set my sights on athletics administration and hopefully one day becoming an athletic director. And so I started researching what did athletic directors do to get to that seat. And so over the course of 3 or 4 months, I really did a deep research dive into who are these people? How did they get there? How can I position myself appropriately? And revenue production was the answer, right? When you started looking at a lot of the modern Division I athletic director, it's a CEO level role that is rooted in political acumen, cross campus collaboration, and revenue production, right? That was true 25 years ago, may even be more true today.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I wanted to position myself and my skill set to something along the lines of revenue production. So while I was at Kentucky, there was an associate athletic director there that was in charge of development, a gentleman by the name of Greg Byrne, who was one of the best to do it in our business, currently at Alabama. And Greg and I have stayed in contact over the last 20 years. And Greg really opened my eyes to athletics development. He was instrumental in helping me get to Missouri. A gentleman by the name of Mark Ingram hired me there. Mark is the last decade the athletic director at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And so, again, it comes back to relationships, meaningful relationships. These are people that I still keep in touch with 20 years later, and value their mentorship, their guidance, their friendship. And that, again, goes back to who you know, but who knows you, and do they like, trust, and respect you? Greg was kind enough to open doors for me to get to Missouri. Mark was kind enough to take a chance on me and hire somebody who had never raised money, who was coming out of Kentucky with a graduate degree and a broad based postgraduate internship, which I didn't mention at Kentucky was really a cool opportunity also. I spent a month or 6 weeks in various different departments. It could have been compliance, facilities and operations, marketing, academics, development. So just, again, having a broad-based mindset and focusing on meaningful relationships will always lead to great interactions with great people. And then it's incumbent upon yourself to do the things others maybe aren't willing to do. Bet on yourself. Take roles that maybe others think are a little bit crazy, and then produce.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to kind of dive into that 6 week thing or 6 week position that you just talked about, kind of getting all all the spoons in the bowl. Just kind of what was that like? Kind of diving into each department because, in my eyes, like to be where you want to be, or and myself, an athletic director like yourself, kind of need to know everything, and you need to know every single department, every single job, every single function. So you kind of got a little glimpse of that in 6 weeks, and definitely have been learning off that and growing off that ever since. But kind of dive into those 6 weeks. What was that like? What was each day kind of entail?
Yeah, it was a really cool opportunity at Kentucky that, I remember my first month, I was in facilities and operations. And I think one of the first jobs we were digging a post hole for new soccer goals before the soccer season.
Man, you're really
I'm in
really in the
Lex.
thick of it.
Yeah, I'm in Lexington, Kentucky in August, and literally manual labor digging a ditch. And I'm thinking to myself, where did I go wrong? I've got a graduate degree and I'm out here digging a ditch in the August heat. And again, it goes back to reaching out to the people that can give you some candid advice or some hard truths or uncomfortable conversations. I remember calling back to Indiana. One gentleman was the COO that I interned with. His name is Craig Angelos. He went on multiple stops. He played baseball at BYU. Another gentleman was the CFO. His name was Jason Lewis, and he's the CFO now at Oklahoma State, and I think soon to be retiring. Had a phenomenal run in college athletics. But I called Jason and Craig, and I said, guys, what did I do wrong here? I'm here in Kentucky. I'm digging a ditch. It's 100 degrees and humid. I've got a master's degree, and they were all laughing, right? They were me now on the other end of the phone and said, "Young man, slow down. You're in Lexington, Kentucky. You're with Mitch Barnhart. You're with Rob Mullins. You're with Scott Strickland. You're with some of the giants in this business. Dig the best ditch they've ever seen." I said, "All right, I got you." And so from there, I started in facilities and operations and spent time in compliance and academics and marketing and development. Literally one month I could be digging that ditch for the soccer goal, and the next month I could be with Greg Byrne at a fundraising event, and Tubby Smith is the featured guest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's all about being present, showing up, doing the work, and not being too proud to dig that hole.
Yeah, I could completely agree with you. Just going back to my internships at KU. Well, yeah, one day I was writing thank you notes for some donors. Then the next day I'm literally sitting in a hospitality room in Allen Fieldhouse talking to our head football coach, Lance Leipold. It's just crazy that one day you're just like, what am I really doing this for? And then like the next day you're like, wow, I'm literally talking to our head football coach.
Yeah, yeah, and it goes back to, Simon Sinek had a famous TED Talk, and his first book that he wrote was Start with Why. Why are you wanting to be in this business? A lot of people have the aspiration, I want to be the associate AD, the deputy AD, the AD, but it comes back to what about this industry excites you, wakes you up every day with a hunger to do the work. And for me, that comes back to the opportunity that student athlete scholarships provide our nation. I think the enterprise of intercollegiate athletics has not done a great job understanding the value of our student athlete scholarships,
Yeah.
right? For our industry, it's a little known fact, and for our country, it's a lesser known fact. Student athlete scholarships is the second largest socioeconomic ladder in our country, behind only the GI Bill.
Wow.
I was raised by a single parent.
Yeah.
I'm a first generation college student, let alone 2 degrees. And for me, I certainly wouldn't have ended up at Indiana University
Yeah.
and taught all the valuable lessons, both from my internship experience, from my playing days. I'm not where I am today without the student athlete experience. And so
Yeah.
for me, that's why I've spent 23 years in this business helping student athletes change lives for generations to come.
Yeah, that's incredible, and congrats on being first generation. I think people don't really like you said, they don't really see this whole new landscape of NIL and kind of revenue sharing. They don't see most people. I feel like they're just like, wow, these players are getting millions of dollars, but it's really they're getting paid, or they are getting paid to play, but they're getting the impact of that is just so much more that no one's really highlighting and no one's really talking about at all.
Yeah, no question. I mean, headlines are headlines, right? And they are designed to be clickbait, right? And does KU have athletes making large sums of money? Yes. Does Arizona State? Yes. Is that the vast majority of our student athlete population across the country or on our respective campuses? No. And I think it's a great thing. NIL and student athletes being able to market and capitalize on their literal name, image, and likeness is phenomenal. Long overdue.
Yeah.
Don't begrudge it in any way. But the reality is, there are thousands of student athletes at the Power Four level, and very few are the ones that end up as the headline and so is transferring for millions of dollars. The baseball player at Indiana, I promise, is not doing that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The rowing person on KU, or rowing leader on KU, is not getting those money or that type of money. I promise you that. But yeah, I completely agree with you right there. And kind of speaking of this new age and new era of NIL, kind of how have you handled it? How's Arizona handled it? Not going into details, of course, but just kind of like an oversight of how has that transition from NIL kind of taken place in your eyes as you've seen it, as you've been in the business for so long?
Yeah, really over the last couple of years here at Arizona State, we've really hit the gas in having those resources available for our programs and our head coaches. It's a critical tool, no different than the arms race 20 years ago that was facilities based, right? It's the next iteration of that. And I think the mantra is really adapt or die. And those that have adapted, similar to us over the last couple of years, have had the success that I mentioned earlier on in our conversation. If we didn't adapt, we couldn't have said we're winning 4 Big 12 conference titles and runner up to 4 other Big 12 conference titles and the national championship in swimming and diving and the top 10 national competition in men's and women's golf and volleyball and triathlon, except and wrestling, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really adapt or die. You can complain. You can complain there's no guardrails on the system. You can complain unlimited transferring is free agency, and our coaches are having to have daily free agent conversation. That's all true. That's all accurate. Coach Dillingham was in Big 12 Media Days in Dallas this week talking about it's no longer about recruiting, it's about retention and building proper culture that your kids don't want to leave. And so that's the mindset that we've taken here in Phoenix is adapt, be fluid, provide our coaches and 26 sport programs that we have the resources to compete on a nationally competitive level. And how do we do that? We activate the valley that is Phoenix, the fifth largest city in the country, one of the most dynamic and best cities in the country, where everybody comes to vacation and retire. We use that as a recruiting and NIL advantage.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, you guys got lucky, get lucky with that big time city right there. I mean, we have, I guess we would say activate the city, but that's Kansas City, which is just right down the road, which is easy for us to kind of recruit and kind of go down there as well. But yeah, no, what has been kind of the biggest challenge you've seen in your role in these past 2 years with all this NIL and kind of you specifically and what you do day to day? What's been like the biggest challenge or multiple smaller challenges you've faced?
Yeah, I think the challenge has been exactly what I discussed as it relates to our donor base or our fan base, educating them on the new realities of the enterprise of intercollegiate athletics and showing them there's a direct correlation to buying in as we all activate the valley. It's the success that I said. Now, preceding that success was a tremendous amount of legwork and relationship building and educating to get us the resources that we need to compete on the stage that you saw. But that challenge has now paid off.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And now
Yeah,
it's not about, now it becomes, it's a new challenge. It's no longer about educating and getting buy-in. Now it becomes the challenge of maintaining. And that is a great space to operate in.
yeah, no, I was on the, speaking of education, I was on the front line of those phone calls and emails. Unknown people just, hey, what's going on nowadays? What's happening? But completely understand the education part. And now now we're in kind of the transition of the retention phase for everyone to kind of make sure everyone's still bought in and continue to buy in. And I'm sure you guys will have plenty of success with Phoenix and Arizona State just being having a great alumni base and everything like that. But kind of talk about, I don't know how much you can talk about, but kind of talk about what goes into a brand deal. I saw you on Twitter at a hockey game holding up a nice check from, is it Mountain American Credit Union or something? And also the branded bills you guys kind of initiated with your donors. As much as you can or as little as you can, kind of go into how those deals go about and how you see it.
Yeah, some of those, we have the fortune of, again, being in one of the best and most dynamic and sought after cities in the country. Brandon Bill's a phenomenal partner, helped us with Back Your Devils Week. Brandon Bill's, their corporate offices are 10 miles down the street. I know Kansas, they've got Brandon Bill's hats, Texas, Georgia, all over the country. So they just happen to be great partners of ours and in our backyard. You mentioned Mountain America Credit Union 2 years ago. That they're based in Salt Lake City. Tremendous credit union and financial institution that bought into Phoenix, Arizona State football when it was down. So much so that I believe even to this day, Mountain America Credit Union and the partnership we have with naming our football stadium is the single largest naming rights partnership in college athletics.
Wow.
And that was done with the tremendous work of Graham Rossini, our current athletic director, previously our chief business officer, Brett Wallerstedt, who leads up our corporate partnerships team. Brett played football for us, has been in the corporate partnership space in college athletics, professional athletics. And again, it takes a team collaborative approach, whether you're talking about branded bills, Mountain America Credit Union, Adidas, Mayo Clinic, Starbucks, Align Technology, the maker of Invisalign. These are all corporate entities that have bought into our mission to activate the Valley and advance ASU through sport.
What's easier, you going to them or them coming to you?
Well, it's always easier when your phone rings, right? But the reality is, it doesn't matter if you're Kansas, Arizona State, Texas. You need to do the legwork to develop the meaningful relationships that provide the resources for our coaches and student athletes to compete at an elite level. That will never go away, regardless of your alumni base, regardless of if you're in a small college town or one of the most dynamic metropolitan areas in the country. The research, the legwork, the meaningful relationships will outlast anything that you think an incoming call might reveal.
Yeah, and I think all that just builds opportunities too. It's like we have a whole entity, or at least at Kansas, they have like a whole entity of sports or Jayhawk sports property, where that their mission is to find those partnerships and deals and to get them back into KU. And I think that just creates opportunity for not only the university but for people and jobs and just working in college athletics, whether that's down that avenue or kind of giving them more experience through that. So I think all of this is just a big positive in my eyes and your eyes too, that this is just shifting maybe for the better, like we talked about. But Vince, as I kind of wrap it up, I wanted to just kind of thank you. I got just a couple more personal questions, but thank you so much for taking the time today, and I appreciated it. What advice would you give a college student right now, or a recent grad like myself, kind of looking to get into this collegiate athletics, kind of maybe your path or something similar in that aspect? But what advice would you give to them? I know you kind of talked about it earlier, but just to kind of reiterate and to kind of hammer it home.
Yeah. I think the key takeaways, it's that grad school professor. It's not what you know. It's not even who you know. It's who knows you and who likes, trusts, and respects you based on having developed meaningful relationships. And once you get in the door, then you have to fall in love with the work, the process, the unsexy things that a lot of people don't know happen behind the scenes. Everybody's seen that poster of an iceberg. You can only see the tip of the iceberg. Everything under that water is where your reputation lies.
And yeah, like you said, it's not sexy. People want to get to the top in the quickest way possible, and in this industry, it's very rare. I'll say that it's definitely very rare. You got to put in the effort, put in the work, and like you said, I mean, 23 years of successfulness every stop you've been. What was your? I mean, besides ASU, what was your favorite stop, and maybe if you have one?
Yeah,
I guess Mizzou.
it's
If
so
you met
tough.
if you met your wife there, it's probably Mizzou.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are so many key milestones along my personal and professional journey. I can't pick one. I mean, Laura, my wife, right, in Columbia, Missouri, unbelievable. Mike Alden, all the folks I mentioned there, Whit Babcock, Mario Mocha, Mark Ingram, Eric Morrison. But the industry has provided me some unbelievable access points. A few of them, I remember my time in Missouri. I had a donor relationship and cultivation with the former CEO of Sprint, which has subsequently been bought by T-Mobile, not too
Yeah.
far from Kansas.
Yeah.
A
My
gentleman
dad
named
actually works
Gary.
there. He works at T-Mobile.
There you go. So, as a 25, 26-year-old, I was carrying a relationship with Gary Forsey, the CEO of Sprint, who later became the system president of the University of Missouri system. I think about Jose Gutierrez, who's a donor also that I worked with, and became the president of AT&T. Tremendous value add in my life and mentor for me. I think about my days at UConn, literally being in the White House and the Oval Office with a sitting president and a national champion women's basketball program. I mean, at age 31, being in the Oval Office. I mean, these are experiences that I had no business being in some of these rooms. And that's again the power of our enterprise. I think about South Texas for 8 years, building the vision, the resources, the infrastructure associated with starting Division I football from scratch. Fast forward to Phoenix and being on the sideline of the CFP game at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta on January 1st when nobody expected us to be there.
Yeah.
When we went into the Big 12, ranked 16th out of 16 schools
Yeah.
to win the Big 12 title.
That's why they stopped doing the rankings, I think. I think they
Yeah.
stopped doing it this year because of you guys.
Sparky killed the preseason rankings in the Big 12. I mean, you think about those rooms, those people, those experiences. Again, I look back on having been so fortunate, looking back at as a 16-year-old in Baltimore, Maryland, could have never thought about anything I just mentioned. And that's again going back to the root of why I love being in this industry, why I appreciate the scholarship I was provided, why I want to give back and continue to ensure that this enterprise is in phenomenal hands for future generations.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing, and yeah, that's definitely great advice and great something I will definitely cherish, and I know hopefully others will too. Last question: what's one thing you tell your 22-year-old self right now? Good, bad, ugly, maybe just hey, fix that golf swing or something.
Yeah, gosh. I was late to golf too. I wasn't even golfing at 22. I picked it up probably in my mid 20s. But, I go back and I look at my 22-year-old self. I would say be patient, enjoy the journey, start with the end in mind, right? And so if you're 22 and your aspiration is in this enterprise to be an athletic director, do the things that others are unwilling to do, make the moves, take the jobs that others are unwilling to do, bet on yourself. Don't be afraid to leave the Power Four and do some things and access some things that you might not be able to do in the Power Four for another decade. But most importantly, start with the end in mind, enjoy the journey. You do not have to have all the answers and have met all your aspirations professionally by age 30 if you're 22. Realize that if you're 22 and you want to retire at age 65, there's a long runway to accomplish everything you want to accomplish. Enjoy the people and the process and the journey. Do not be in a hurry.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Outside of this, you got any, what's the hobbies like? You're in a beautiful city. What do you got going on outside of work?
Yeah, I have taken to golf over the last 15, 20 years. I enjoy that. But really, as we all know, these jobs are so all consuming, and my family is phenomenal. We've talked about Laura, my bride. I've got two young boys. Gino, that's 9, he's turning 10 next month. Gavin is 7. So we're with them, running to all different sporting events.
Yeah, watching them grow up.
And being in a city like Phoenix, it's year round, right? So, and they're into everything. They do baseball in the fall and the spring. They do flag football in the Phoenix winter. And then we get them indoors at this time of the year in the summer. They're playing basketball right now. So we're going 50 out of 52 weeks somewhere with those boys and their sports. But personally, I do enjoy golf. You can see the bookcase behind me. I do enjoy reading. I think that's a critical component for wisdom, knowledge, professional advancement, emotional intelligence. And all of those books, it's all nonfiction. It's biographies, it's leadership development books, business management books. Not one of them is nonfiction. If I'm going to get into nonfiction, I'll turn the TV on or go to a movie and enjoy some shows or movies. But Ryan, I've really enjoyed our time here this morning, and certainly honored that you reached out and appreciate being the first podcast here with you.
Yeah, Vince, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for connecting with me and this conversation. This was awesome. It's funny you say this morning because I'm like 2 hours ahead of you, so it's like it's 1:37. But yeah, no, I thank you so much, and it was great insight and great talking with you today, and I appreciate every second of it.
Absolutely, Ryan. All the best. Wishing you continued success on the journey.
Thank you, appreciate it.